Delaware Department of Finance has announced that residents who did not file a 2020 Delaware tax return will be given the opportunity to receive rebate from October 17, 2022. Joe Manchin has just put forward his new plan, folks, and this proposal would help Americans financially, while also addressing the rising cost of living. Democrats are pushing to use the budget reconciliation process. A spokesperson for Manchin confirmed that Manchin will vote against President Biden's proposal of a gas tax holiday. Biden has already called on Congress to suspend federal taxes on gas and diesel for 3 months. That would cut 0.18 cents per gallon on gas and 0.24% on diesel for drivers. Manchin also pointed out that if the gas tax is passed for 3 months, it would be scheduled to go back into effect in September, right before elections. Manchin was also hesitant to sign a bill that would remove a resource for improved infrastructure. Manchin told reporters, "We need a lot of adjustments made." The last point that Manchin made in his interview with ABC is that this would only be a short-term fix, and Americans are cutting back at the gas pump and not just the amount of fuel they put in their tanks. Consumers are also changing the way they fill their grocery bags with rest-stop food and other essentials. The average price of gas is hovering around $5 a gallon after it recently crossed that mark for the first time on record. Here is more breaking news. Several Republicans have joined scores of Democratic lawmakers calling for the U.S. to reinstate child tax credit payments. For more than a year, Joe Biden and several senators have advocated for regular child tax credit payments to help families struggling to feed and clothe their children. Bernie Sanders spoke from the Senate floor, saying that the Senate has strange priorities for fighting against a program that helped lift 3.7 million children out of poverty during the worst of the crisis. Instead, Congress passed a $53 billion bill to help the microchip industry. Food insecurity was not addressed, though. Today, rather than support the child tax credit plan pushed for Democratic colleagues, the Republicans have staked claim to a plan of their own. The Family Security Act 2.0 is meant to help many families across the country. Under this plan, parents will receive $350 per child 5 and younger. The existing $2,000 credit was raised to $3,600 for children ages 5 and younger. And if a parent opted in, half the credit was sent in monthly payments, beginning in July and ending in December. The other half of the credit was collected when 2021 tax returns were filed. But what was exceptional about the bill is that it allowed parents who typically earn too little to file income taxes to receive the same payments. And payments helped so many that former Treasury Secretary Reuben and Jacob Lew wrote an op-ed letter in the New York Times calling to make the child tax credit permanent. Yes, everybody, lawmakers in Congress, Yes, folks, lawmakers in Congress are negotiating on a crisis relief bill that would actually establish new stimulus programs. Also, another state will begin sending out $600 stimulus payments to many low-income Americans. This can help so many people. Here's the latest news on that. More than 200,000 Oregon workers will receive $600 checks from the state as soon as this week. Oregon lawmakers in March approved a one-time stimulus payment for certain low-income workers. The payments would go to people in Oregon who claimed the Earned Income Tax Credit in 2020, a tax break for low-income working households and live within the state in the last 6 months of the year. The Oregon Department of Revenue said Wednesday they would distribute nearly $140 million to 300,000 qualifying households. Payments are limited to one per household. About $82 million will be deposited directly into the banks. And while the remaining nearly $60 million will be sent via mail, the state said qualifying individuals will receive the money no later than July 1st. The state is paying for the crisis stimulus payments, and Rich Hoover, a spokesperson for the Oregon Department of Revenue, said the payments are not subject to state or federal income tax. The relief bill passed by wide margins in both chambers of the Oregon legislature this spring, with a handful of Republicans and Democrats supporting this bill. The payments evolved from a 2021 plan for larger stimulus payments up to $2,000 to essential workers who stayed on the job during the crisis and those who rejoined the workforce last fall. That's awesome news, everybody.
Senator Warren and Senator Sanders, Medicare for All, that's seeking to control cost and increase coverage even more. I think that's just going to originate or develop into a single payer system that's going to drive down quality and drive up cost, which are the things that we definitely don't need. And I think that's the path that we're on right now. Speaker Pelosi's H.R. 3 tries to do the job by negotiating with payments. And we see things like trying to cap costs on the insulin that was just a bill that passed out of the House. And we ignore things like PBMs. So we've got to get to the root problems and make sure that we're promoting innovation, that we're promoting fiscal accountability, and I think what we've produced out of this subcommittee is going to roll into the big task force, and we're going to have a great healthcare plan that addresses all of those issues. How do we lower drug costs for Americans? How do we unleash American innovation on new drugs, on new devices, and on diagnosis and on the way that treatments are delivered? And as Dr. Winstrup said, American-made medicines and medical equipment. I was shocked to learn when the pandemic started, and I had people in my district wanting to produce face masks, and the fabric that goes into an N95 face mask is made by an American company, but it was all in a warehouse in China. We had the people with the equipment to make it, but we couldn't get the basic fabric to go into it. So these are the kind of issues we need to be addressing, and I'm just glad to be the outsider, the non-doctor on the task force. But to defend engineers, we're problem solvers, so we'll take the expert advice from my colleagues and solve a problem.
To our energy needs with this administration, and Premier Kinney, you said you're having a hard time understanding the Biden administration's approach on this. Know that there are many of us who are also having a hard time understanding where and why the administration has taken the approach that they have. There's a lot of kinship between Alaska and Canada right now. We feel like we have been shunted off to the corner as well, and our opportunity to provide for America's domestic production has been effectively derailed by this administration, whether it's the actions within the NPRA, the recent actions with regards to lease sales in Cook Inlet, or the opportunity that we have within our coastal plain area. So we're also having a hard time understanding the direction from this administration. But I have to ask the question, because we saw the response from President Biden after Russia took that first step into Ukraine, and the effort was not to come to Canada as our partner, but to call on Venezuela, to call on Iran for increased production, to turn to OPEC. Is there something different in the product, in the oil itself, in the crude itself, something in Venezuela or Iranian oil that American or Canadian oil doesn't have? Is it cleaner? What would give them that advantage over what we might be able to do here in the United